Morning all. I think we're now fully up to speed, Ruth, is that right? Excellent, all right, in which case we'll start the meeting. Item 1 is the minutes of the last meeting. I have one announcement to make on that, which is that we missed off Jane James as attending that meeting, and we have corrected that egregious error. Are there any other matters that anyone wants to raise on those minutes, or can we take them as a true record? Seeing, sure. Okay, thank you. Item 2, apologies and substitutes. Ruth?
Thank you, Chairman. We've received apologies from Councillor Kybird and we have Councillor Hambidge as substitute. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item 3 is Chairman's announcements. I have none. I'm going to take item 5 ahead of item 4, declarations of interest. Are there any members, and I will speak briefly on the position of County Council Twin Hatters in a second, but are there any members who have any other declarations of interest that they want to make? No, so clearly we have, including myself, Councillor Jeremy, Councillor Eagle are all county councillors and of course all district councillors. We're all attending this meeting today in our capacity as district councillors. I've spoken to the monitoring officer and he agrees that we should be able to speak on any items, including the one that will come up under an item of urgent business. Councillor Eagle.
Just for the record, please, because I'm a cabinet member at Norfolk County Council, I shan't be speaking on the devolution deal, just for clarity. Thank you.
Thank you. And just so members of the public are aware, of course, the decision taken around devolution last week was made by the County Council Cabinet, and a pre-action protocol letter was sent by this council, among others, to that council, hence Fabian's statement. Are there any other comments on declarations of interest? Seeing none, in which case we go to item 4, which are items of urgent business. I, as chairman, have brought one item of urgent business by the special reason being that of timing. As you'll be aware, Norfolk County Council took a decision at its cabinet last week, and we've invited Norfolk County Council to come here today to talk about the decision and answer questions from this member, and they've kindly agreed to come, so thank you very much. I understand from Paul that you're going to give a short statement first, and then we can go to questions from members. So when you're ready.
Well, thank you, Chairman. Hope everybody can hear me. I would like to make an opening statement, which is normal at scrutiny committees, having been to the County Council Scrutiny Committee a number of times. So I think it's normally to set the scene in that respect. So I will do that. The way I want to approach this is really setting out what government have said and what we've actually done from the County Council perspective, but also looking at the opportunities available through the county deal. So starting point really is the government set itself a mission that by 2030, and that's not that far away now, every part of England that wants a devolution deal will have one, with powers at or approaching the highest level of devolution, with a simplified long-term funding settlement. The 2022 Levelling Up White Paper makes clear the case for devolution as the engine room of improved productivity and reduced regional disparities. Devolution will be critical to delivering government's 12 headline levelling up missions, strengthening local leadership to act more flexibly and innovatively to respond to local need, whether, for example, on transport, skills or regeneration, but obviously not limited to those. In the white paper, the government published for the first time a devolution framework, which sets out a clear menu of options for places in England that wish to unlock the benefits of devolution. This framework places a strong emphasis on the importance of high profile, directly elected local leadership, strong local governance, and joint working across sensible and coherent economic geographies. The most comprehensive package is what's called a level 3 deal for areas with a single institution over a sensible geography, and the sensible geography is Norfolk in that respect, with the strongest and most accountable leadership, such as a single county or unitary council with a directly elected leader. The directly elected leader would be the leader of Norfolk County Council and be vested with all its executive powers and responsibilities, alongside new powers conveyed to Norfolk County Council by this deal. So Chairman, that's the background to this deal in general terms. I just want to go on a bit further to talk about a little bit more detail. I'm not speaking out of turn when I say that Norfolk wants devolution. In that case, we ought to be excited about it for our residents, not see how we can stop it all happening and getting hung up on having additional layers of governance or bureaucracy. We've actually come quite a long way since it's all started in the summer of 2021. So that's over 18 months ago now. And we were in a situation where we put in an expression of interest alongside other local authorities. And in that time, we've got the trust of DLUC ministers and officials with a clear desire of government wanting to work with Norfolk and deliver devolution. So Norfolk now remains one of 9 local authorities progressing devolution deals. Taking this deal forward should recognise it's the first step on the ladder of Norfolk, showing it's a can-do county with ambition, one to do business with, to have a stronger voice nationally and not be an outsider but an insider. Through this deal, we have a real opportunity to unlock significant long-term funding, gain greater freedom to decide how best to meet local needs, and create new opportunities for the people who live and work in Norfolk. Moving decisions and funding previously controlled in Westminster to Norfolk, for Norfolk, to take control of our own destiny and shape our own future. It's also a catalyst for change, to build on our strengths, address challenges, deliver infrastructure, and grow the economy. For too long, I think we'd all agree with this as well, Norfolk as a rural county has been left behind, which is why devolution is a prize, and a prize worth fighting for. And just a quick summary of the financials in the deal and the advantages set out in it as well. A new investment fund of £20 million per annum for 30 years. An opportunity to unlock housing and employment sites with an injection of £12.9 million capital funding. Invest in the skills we know we need, particularly with devolution of the adult education budget. Invest in local transport planning and consolidate transport budgets to direct funding to better meet our local needs and priorities. And also strengthen the local business voice to inform local decision-making and strategic economic planning through the future integration of the New Anglia Local Enterprise Partnership. And to raise our influence nationally and regionally, enabling our voice, Norfolk's voice, to be better heard by government, to shape future policies and funding decisions, and for the benefit of Norfolk. To some, the deal may not be much, but it's consistent with all the other initial deals announced so far. I would suggest there's no such thing as the perfect deal. This is only the first deal, and one I hope of many to come. And so you have to start somewhere in that respect, and this is Norfolk's start to unlock future opportunities. In terms of the money, it's not going to solve the county's budget problems. It was never intended to do that. We recognise that. But it is additional money to deliver priorities that we couldn't necessarily do otherwise. And this will, as I said, require a change in governance, but for the county council, and by so doing, will not be creating an additional layer of governance. I think we all fully accept, I certainly do, that there are risks in the change of governance, but then it's up to us all to create a platform, constitution, and implementation plan to mitigate them. Directly elected leaders are not anywhere else yet, that is, but Suffolk and Norfolk are going that route too. So we're not alone in Norfolk. And let me also be very, very clear. This is not about taking or usurping powers away from districts. And contrary to what's being said, Norfolk County Council has worked with districts. That's where Norfolk's priorities were set and worked up, and they're shown in the deal text. The difference emanating from some is that a mayoral combined authority is a better governance route for the future. I don't deny that's possible, but do we really want to create a new layer of governance and bureaucracy? And that route is not one that government is promoting. MPs too have lent their support to being ambitious and going for the highest level of opportunity. If there's an obvious benefit to the county and its government policy, why shouldn't government MPs go with it? And I think we all know that Norfolk is a big county. All its key places, named just a few, Cromer, Great Yarmouth, Kings Lynn, Norwich, Thetford, in fact, everywhere will, as time goes on, see the benefits of devolution starting with this deal. And to be fair, it's not been easy getting to this point. So having signed an in-principle deal, let's not lose the impetus and initiative that's been created by doing that. There are still many hurdles to jump, but we need to take advantage of the opportunity, show Norfolk's potential and ambition, break down barriers to ensure that there is genuine partnership working nationally and locally. We have a Norfolk Public Sector Leaders Board, where the local authorities and other prominent players, such as health, the police and voluntary sector, are together, along with the business community, who've shown their support for the deal. Let's not forget that. Here's the opportunity for all stakeholders and partners to help us shape the priorities of planning, implementation, and ultimately delivery. And working this way is set out in the deal text, which is available for everyone to read. The whole process is still a minded to deal, minded to as it's subject to relevant legislation. And it would be the end of 2023, the end of this year, to make a final decision on governance change. And that will be a matter for Norfolk County Council to take. In the meantime, we can show Norfolk can make a success of the devolution prize and start our journey towards greater opportunities. At its meeting on the 17th of January, members of Norfolk County Council considered the full text of the in-principle deal for Norfolk. There were various amendments put forward to stop or slow down the process, but the vote at the council meeting was clear. The council, and this was the recommendation, the council had considered the full text of the in-principle deal for Norfolk, and as a result, was not proposing any changes. Later that day, Norfolk County Council's cabinet ratified the in-principle deal that I had signed on the 8th of December 2022. It also agreed to undertake consultation starting from the 6th of February, and that work is well underway and gives an opportunity for everybody to put input their views into that consultation. So Chairman, myself, Tom McCabe and Paul Cracknell are here today at your request to answer questions from members. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we'll go straight to members then for questions. Do any members have any questions they'd like to ask? Councillor Bray.
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry it took so long to get the microphones. A couple of things, if I may. Having read the deal, a couple of things that I would like sort of clarified. It says that the sovereignty of district and boroughs and parish councils will be upheld. They won't be losing any of the statutory powers that they have now. And that we will be working in, NCC will be working in partnership with these districts and boroughs. Can we have some assurance that that is the way that this is going to go? Because it's vitally important that we work together. The second point that I have is that having read what's happened, as far as I can see, Norfolk has agreed in principle, which allows the next step, which is to go to consultation with the public. I would like to know who is putting together the consultation document, because we all know it's how you ask the question, not what the answer is. So I'd like to know who has got input into that consultation. And the other thing is that if the general public, the voting public, say no to this deal in their consultation, I've read that we are going to send all the results to government for them to look at. So does that open the door to renegotiation if the public doesn't want it? And would NCC back the voting public and support their decision?
Thank you. So 3 points, I think.
If I start on the consultation, Councillor Brame first, the County Council will arrange the consultation, but very much hand in glove with colleagues from national government. There have been a number of these consultations that have happened in most recently North Yorkshire and the East Midlands. So there is a format for that. We will see what the public say. It's not a plebiscite. It's not a referendum. It's a consultation. So whether we get, I think I can't remember, did they get 5,000 or something returns in North Yorkshire? So we will see what the returns say from the general public, from academia, from business groups, from other elected bodies, and all of that information will be in the public domain, and all of that will be shared with government. And as Councillor Proctor said, ultimately Parliament need to sign things off. So it's not just a Norfolk decision; it's a decision that has to be made in Norfolk, and another decision that has to be made in Westminster. Did you want to come in, Andrew?
Well, not on those particular points. I think we covered those, Tom. I just want to cover Roy's first point off about the powers. I did say, let me be clear, and you are right to quote what you did. There is nothing taking any powers away from districts, boroughs, city councils, parish councils, or town councils at all. I think there's also a misnomer saying, well, the directly elected leader can do that. Sorry, that's wrong too. It would not be that at all. The directly elected leader would not have those powers. The other aspect of how we can work better together, and I would use that phrase better together, is that we actually have a meeting later on today in Great Yarmouth, well, no, sorry, Gorse, not Great Yarmouth, of the Norfolk Leaders Group. And a proposal being put forward to that meeting will be how we can use the Norfolk Public Sector Leaders Board, an expanded version of that, to actually drive the implementation, the planning, the overall oversight, if you like, of this. I'm hoping that colleagues there will be able to back that as a way forward, because in the deal text, which I'm sure people read, in the deal text, it specifically refers to the Norfolk Public Sector Leaders Board as a body to actually make that work that way. So hopefully that clarifies what you're asking.
And sorry, just to pick up on Roy's question about the consultation. So say a huge majority of the voting public returned a consultation response that wasn't in favour of the current terms of the deal. Is that something that would change the County Council's approach or not?
We could speculate. I won't speculate. It's not a vote, it's a consultation. So I think we'll be looking to see what views are raised, what points are raised, and if there are things there for us to discuss with government. We have to remain ambitious, and within that, it may well be that we pick up aspects that we could look to get in. In Manchester, they're up to version 6. So the mayor of Manchester on the media yesterday, he was negotiating version 7 of his deal. So this is about being as ambitious for Norfolk, not just on this deal, but on the future iterations of it as well.
Thank you. I've got Harry, then Terry, then Tim, then Roger, then Linda. Harry.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and thank you for coming along today, Councillor Proctor and colleagues. Mine is hopefully a very straightforward question. We know that inflation is pernicious at the moment, eating away the value of our spending power. Can you clarify? I don't think the deal is index linked in any way, sort of future proofing in terms of inflation. I may be wrong, but I'll be grateful if you could clarify that point as we go forward, assuming all other things were equal. Thank you.
No, you are correct in what you say. It isn't. But then the proposed deal with Norfolk is no different to the proposed deal with Suffolk or Cornwall or the East Midlands or North Yorkshire. All have got the same basic terms, that there's an investment fund which is on an annual basis for 30 years. But I would also go back to what Tom McCabe was saying there, that the starting point for much of this is very much this particular deal. Going forward from there, then if you look at what's happened in other places, I think it was Teesside raised about another £900 million in there about 5 years after they got their first deal. But in addition to that, many of the devolved areas don't have to bid for funds. There was the BSEP, the Bus Service Improvement Plan process, where I think 50%, I'm not absolutely certain on that, but I think it's 50% of the money went to devolved areas without having to bid, whereas other areas that did have to or did want to had to bid for it. So there's some significant advantages around that, but you are correct in what you're saying.
Thank you. Terry.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got a few points, but if I do two, and then I'll come back at the end once others have spoken. Thank you very much for coming. I always enjoy talking to sort of family and friends about council business, because we all get engrossed in local government and the way we do things, and devolution means something to us and something entirely different to other people. And I've been trying to talk to people about what it means, the advantages, the disadvantages. And the point that keeps coming up when I talk about, we need a voice, we need representation. And people say to me, why doesn't the government listen to us already? Because we already have a leader of the county council. We have 84 democratically elected county councillors. We have a leader of Breckland who's well connected. He's the chair of the National District Council Network. We have Tory MPs. We've got one who recently was the Prime Minister. Amongst our cohort, we've got current ex-cabinet members, various ministers. So I can understand why people are asking, what's the problem if they're not being listened to at the moment? And I think that one of the key arguments for a democratically elected leader signifies, to me at least, a failure, that we're not being listened to already. And that's why I'm not convinced that having a directly elected leader will make any more difference. And I'm not sure they'll have any more clout than what we've currently got. And I think the real danger is it becomes just another voice amongst a mix of various other voices, more governance costs. So I suppose my key question to Andrew is why you think having a directly elected leader will make any difference. Frankly, that's a key point. And just following on from Roy's point there about consultation, my second question is around, we have a population in Norfolk of almost 1 million people, hugely significant Norfolk County Council budget. And I was really interested in the recent budget consultation for county. For the entire consultation for that budget, less than 300 people took part. It's sad, frankly, that more people don't engage with council consultations. And I'm not confident that the devolution, it's a complicated issue, devolution, and I'm not convinced that it will give a true reflection of what people's views are. And we've already heard that it's not a binary consultation anyway. So I think the details of that consultation and how it will be run and will be absolutely key. There wasn't a single person under the age of 18 that took part in that county budget consultation, and there were 4 people aged between 18 and 25. But this is going to be a change for generations, and I think the consultation is key. So I really wonder when you will publish a detailed plan for how that consultation will take part. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll jump in first, Terry, and I suppose I think your second question partly answers your first question, that politics and politicians and the structures that we have lots of the times don't seem to be very relevant to a lot of people, certainly some of our younger people. So how can we make it more relevant? This is English devolution. We can look at where devolution has gone in the other home nations, and actually English devolution has a long way to go as far as Scotland with their own parliament. I think nationally, all of the main parties are tied into devolution, and I think that's because there's a recognition that power has been concentrated in, I'll say, Whitehall rather than even Westminster. And this is a way of pushing powers to local areas so that we can have greater influence and decide locally what's important to us. And the mechanism that government has seen, we've seen mechanism in the past with PCCs and whatever, where government have said they want to have a clearly identifiable local person who is responsible for stuff. That's I think what we're seeing more of now, so that if people can stand up and be the voice of Norfolk, Suffolk, Cornwall, that maybe that will get more people involved. And I suppose we could say that if we look at the First Minister of Scotland, she's very recognisable on a national scale. So whether we can replicate the better parts of that, time will tell.
And if I just go on to address the first point you're making there, Terry, about the directly elected leader and failure. Well, I think we're all in a situation now where this is a different approach. So is it worth looking at this from a different approach point of view to think, are there benefits? And if we can see there are benefits in the future about having that direct contact, the insider rather than outsider into government, then that has to be a way forward. You made the point about devolution being complicated. In some respects, it's unnecessarily complicated, but I would then suggest going back to where we started from in 2021, it's really, let's have a pitch from everybody and see what happens. And that pitch got quite detailed, not so much complicated, but detailed. And then the framework was published in the Levelling Up bill last year, roughly a year ago now, isn't it? Which did set out how the government wanted to do devolution with the levels 1, 2, and 3. So the question then is it worth it? Is it worth the change in terms of the governance, which only applies to the county council, and the issue about governance costs will be purely down to the county council, and I can't see it's going to raise a huge amount of extra costs in that respect. But is the change worth it for what's actually delivered? And I would actually say, in that respect, the additionality you get in terms of what's happening. I appreciate what people said about the size of the investment fund, but having that additionality early on, and also the opportunity to have further deals as we go on, is really the opportunity where we should be looking in a positive way for the future.
Thank you very much. Tim.
Thank you, Chairman. Oops, sorry for that. So you started your presentation by saying that Norfolk wants devolution. How do you know that Norfolk wants devolution, or the exact version of devolution that you're offering or suggesting? You also went on further on to say that everywhere will see the benefits of devolution, but you haven't presented any evidence for that. And I'm wondering that with the relatively small budgets which we're talking about over very long periods of time, they must come with certain extra responsibilities, otherwise it's not worth doing. How much will it cost for us to take on those extra responsibilities? So how can you demonstrate that there will be a benefit of devolution for everywhere? Now, the previous response to the chairman's question seemed to suggest that the consultation that's going to take place is not able to reject any deal. If that's correct, is this not just a diktat from those that have already decided that this is what's going to happen?
If I can start on the wants devolution part, that's a fact in terms of where discussions have been. Or perhaps it may not be everybody's view, but certainly the view of people who've been involved in this process the last 18 months or so. And I put then the leaders of the various councils in that, and one would assume that they're representing the views of their councils when they say that they actually want devolution. So, well, you may or may not disagree with that, but that's how it's come across in terms of wanting devolution. There's also a fairly strong business contingent as well, that since the deals come out have been in favour as well. But no, this is something that will have to be tested through the consultation. In terms of the benefits, then the benefits will accrue over time. In a situation like this, nobody can say hand on heart today, this will be done, that will be done tomorrow. That's impossible. But what will happen as part of the work that's got to be done around the implementation is to make sure that we look at things that need to be done across Norfolk, not just one area, but across the whole of Norfolk. Part of that is the Norfolk Infrastructure Framework. and that is across the county being organised by all the bodies involved, the districts and the county, to get that sort of thing done. And I would go back to the point about opportunity. This is an opportunity and additionality in terms of the money, but powers and responsibility, sure. They've got, any power that comes along has a responsibility associated with it, particularly there's money associated with it as well. I'm not sure I agree with your point about diktat, because we've got to listen to the views of what people put forward. If they don't like things, then they clearly need to say why they don't like it.
Can I just pick up on Tim's point there about Norfolk wanting devolution, given Norfolk's a county of about 1 million people, and you say that the people who've been involved in the discussions to date are the ones who've shown Norfolk's will for devolution. I wondered how many people have been involved in the discussions in the last 18 months? Is it 100, 1,000, 20 people who are representing Norfolk on this?
Well, if you take the point of view of myself as the county council leader, the various leaders of the various districts, boroughs and city councils as well, nobody has come up and said we don't want devolution. Likewise, when the devolution proposals have been taken to the existing Norfolk Public Sector Leaders Board, nobody in there, which is a wider body than just the local government family, have said this is not what we want. So I think the evidence is clear, and likewise with the business community as well. If it turns out that profits or that summation is wrong through the consultation, then let's find that out through there. But certainly there's nothing that's been said, certainly from the meetings I've attended, that we don't want devolution. The issue I think is going to be how powers are devolved, how they're actually governed for the future.
Thank you. Tim, you can come back and then I'll go to Roger.
Very quickly, people coming back saying what they don't want. Well, have you got to specify what you don't want? Because I don't want war. Do I need to have that written down first? I mean, there's a perverse argument to say you haven't heard what people don't want.
I can only go back to say what's coming out from the consultation, where people will be able to have the views and express the views they want to express.
Roger.
I'd like to just talk about the strength of the governance arrangement if this comes into being, if I may. So I want to give you a hypothetical scenario, and I'd like you to just bear me out while this plays out so you can explain to me how this is going to provide stable governance for the people of Norfolk. So I'm an independent councillor. Let's say, hypothetically, I decide to go to the people of Norfolk and stand for election as the elected leader for Norfolk. Could be me, could be a leading business person, could be a celebrity. And the people of Norfolk decide to put their faith in me and elect me as the leader. The day after the election, I need to go to County Hall and I need to find a cabinet that I can work with, or who's prepared to work with me. Now, I'm pretty certain that if I'm going to be political, if I've, Mr. Proctor, if I've beaten you in those elections, and the Conservative cabinet are probably not, who are there at the moment, are probably not going to want to be too keen to work on me because they might not like some of my ideas. So I might have to go to the Labour Party, the Greens, the Liberal Democrats, and I might need to form a cabinet of all the talents if those people are willing to work with me. So can you just explain, because this could happen, take the political parties out of it, you could have a strong independent-minded candidate. We had it with the first police and crime commissioner in Norfolk was an independent and won. And I personally think that'd be great to have an independent voice in there, but I just don't know how you're going to provide stable governance. Or is there a kind of arrogance playing out here that you automatically think that you would, let's say you were the ruling party at the moment, that the Conservative candidate would win, especially given sort of the state of the current national polls, etc. Can you tell me how this is going to provide stable governance for Norfolk and what would happen in that scenario? Because I'd have to go to Mr. McCabe, who's the chief executive, and say, I need an administration here that's going to work. So Mr. McCabe perhaps is probably the best person to tell me how that conversation is going to go the day after the election.
You're absolutely right. As we approach any election, one of the things is looking at the possible scenarios, and my job, that smooth administrative thing, keep the sausage machine turning. I'll probably use, you give me a hypothetical question. I'll use two examples, one in Norfolk, one in Hartlepool, where things like that happened, and the machinery of government continued smoothly. In Norfolk, we had a number of years ago what was known as the Rainbow Alliance, where we had a group of disparate people who you wouldn't have probably you wouldn't have put in the room as saying they've got the same political DNA. And I think for about 3 years that they ran the council and kept things going, and people will judge how successful or otherwise it was. In Hartlepool, when they had a mayoral election there, directly elected mayor, there was an independent candidate who had no history in politics. I think he was the local, he was the mascot for the local football club. He got elected, he formed a cabinet, and he got re-elected in whatever it was, 4 years later, because actually, I think, people who put themselves forward for election, and in that instance, people who formed his cabinet or whatever with him, they've got the greater good in that case of Hartlepool at mind, rather than the fact I lost this election or my team lost this election. So I think you have to hope in the good of people rather than there's a job to do.
So hope is what we have to hang a hat on after the election. Because to me, I mean, anybody can stand for election. I think I'm all for that. I'm just not convinced of the strength of your argument, where we already have a leader of Norfolk County Council who's elected in his ward, and the majority party, they form an administration, they elect and choose a leader out of that administration. And brings me to my next point. I cannot understand, you say that this directly elected leader will be a stronger voice for Norfolk. Then I have to say, why aren't you that strong voice for Norfolk now, sir? You've said in here at the beginning in your statement that you'll be able to better integrate and support business in Norfolk as the directly elected leader. I have to say to you, what's stopping you doing that now? Please tell me what stops you doing that now.
Just before I pass across to Councillor Proctor, you give me a hypothetical situation. I give you two examples where we had that hypothetical situation and the councils involved functioned perfectly reasonable for periods of time. So it's not just about, I believe in people, and people are the ones who make the decisions.
And just to add to that, if I may, Sharon, whoever gets elected to this role, it's a big job. It's not one for the faint-hearted, I can tell you that. It's not one for celebrities who think they can just swan in and say we're taking over Norfolk, because it just wouldn't work that way. So the point really about anybody recognising that, they'd have to think, first of all, it is a big job to do. And likewise, if you were and you stood for election and you were successful, it would be your call as to who you put in your cabinet. That's the fact of how it would work. The directly elected leader has that opportunity and that power to do so. What the implementation work will do, and obviously the constitution work as well, will make sure that the necessary controls are there to avoid anybody, let's say, riding roughshod on the whole thing. But there's a huge amount of work still to be done to get that right for the future. And with regard to the business community, a lot of the work currently is done through the local enterprise partnership. I'm not saying anything against the LEP, because they've done a huge amount of work. The way that things will work in the future is with devolved areas, the LEP roles, powers and responsibilities will be devolved to the new devolved counties. So they'll be taken into there. How they'll actually be exercised is another matter. But one thing that's got to happen is to have strong business voice in there. Business boards are being talked about, and that's the sort of thing to embrace the business community. I'm not saying don't embrace them now, because we do, but to embrace them in such a way they have a good big voice for the future.
And just to pick up on two of Roger's points, one as a point of fact, are you saying the directly elected leader can only appoint cabinet members from county councillors, or can they appoint cabinet members from the general populace? And then I think he had a question about how the current leadership of Norfolk County Council is unable to represent in quite as an effective manner as a directly elected leader would be able to do so.
On the first point, Chairman, it is only county councillors. It can't be taking anybody in to the cabinet. And then the second point, really, okay, whatever people may think about what's being done, I think collectively Norfolk has done a huge amount of lobbying, be it at district level, through the DCN, at the county level, through the CCN, that network, also through the LGA. I wouldn't say that we've failed. We haven't achieved all the things we want to achieve, agreed, but we haven't failed. We've done the best we possibly can in difficult circumstances for everybody to make sure that we get the best we can. We don't get the responses we want all the time, but regrettably, that's life.
Thank you. I'm conscious of time. We've got 18 minutes before I think we lose our esteemed colleagues. I've got Linda, then I'll come to me because I've got a couple of questions. Then I've got Paul, then I've got Robert, then I've got Roy, then I've got Roger again, and then I think I'll probably have Terry again. So let's keep our questions succinct, and no doubt the answers will be succinct as well, and we can rattle through as many as possible. So Linda.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm also speaking as Bretland Order People's Champion. So will devolution make the addressing of social care and the care of what is mainly an elderly population in Norfolk any better? These are the sort of questions that need to be on that consultation paper, because my guess is, picking up Terry's point, fewer younger people will answer it as against older people. And the public, whether we're parish, district, town, county, councillors, whatever, that's what they want to know. Who is going to look after me? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question, Councillor Turner. So the devolution framework outlines what's in scope, and so the consultation is going to be on the basis of the things that are in the scope of the devolution deal. There is nothing additional about social care within the deal, so there are no particular questions about it. In terms of how that relates to its importance, clearly it is very important, and Norfolk County Council will continue to be responsible for social care. How it plays into devolution, and I'll just pick up on some of the themes around how the influence works. Some of how the influence works in practice is very, very simple. In the minds of government, and it's outlined in the white paper, government considers this as the strongest form of governance because the leader has an electoral mandate from the entirety of the county. Government gathers those directly elected leaders together, whether they are the current kind of mayors of kind of mayoral combined authorities or those under the county deals, and gives them increased direct access to now. One of the reasons why we find this model attractive for Norfolk is it gives us the ability for this person to bring that mandate and bring that influence on the things that Norfolk County Council is already responsible for. A mayor of just a mayoral combined authority does not have the right or the authority to speak on those topics. So that's how it links to social care. The deal itself doesn't address that as a topic, as well as other kind of matters of government policy. But what it does is, because the directly elected leader would be the leader of Norfolk County Council, they have a legitimate voice on all those topics as well.
Thank you. So I've got three questions. One is around support in Norfolk, one is around layers of governance, and one is around the negotiations that led up to the devolution deal as it stands at the moment. So I think this deal has been unique in managing to unify district councils of different political parties in challenging the process to date. It's public knowledge that a pre-action protocol letter was sent by this council and 3 others, including a Liberal Democrat one in North Norfolk. you've said that we all need to work together. How is it that our relationship between district councillors and county council has deteriorated to such a point that legal letters are being sent about the process that Norfolk County Council is conducting? And in that vein, obviously members of Parliament are an important part of the political process in this county. I wondered how many members of Parliament are currently speaking in support of the deal as it stands, to your knowledge. So that's my first question. My second question is around additional layers of governance. We've had reassurance that this won't constitute an additional layer of governance. I wanted you to confirm if you knew how much the directly elected leader is going to be paid, whether they will be allowed to appoint a deputy, whether they will have support staff, and whether there's going to be a separate budget to support that office, or whether or not that's all going to be included with the current county council budget, and if so, what your cost estimates are around that. And then my third question was, clearly we had long and arduous negotiations in the run-up to ratifying the deal. I know that a very small and select group of people were involved in those negotiations, and the text of the deal wasn't made public, obviously, until the day that you signed it. I wondered if you could tell this committee what you think the top 3 wins for Norfolk were in the negotiations, and how it is that this deal excels in terms of what you've achieved vis-a-vis other deals around the country.
Let me just address 2 particular points there. First of all, with regard to MPs, I actually have a letter on my file addressed to me, signed by all the Conservative MPs, of which there are 8 out of 9 in Norfolk, supporting going for the highest level of devolution deal with ambition. The exact wording I haven't got, I'm afraid, but I have that letter back from March 2022. No MP has said to me, don't do this. What they want to make sure of is that Norfolk does actually go for something that has ambition. With regard to the letter, I have no intention of commenting on that whatsoever. It's still going through a legal process, and any comments on that would not be correct in these circumstances. With regard to the costs of the directly elected leader, his or her remuneration will be determined, as any member of the council, well, it's not exactly a member of the council, but the leader in that respect, by an independent remuneration panel. Anything there in terms of cost will be picked up through the county council budget. The team, if you like, supporting the directly elected leader, I doubt will be any different to what it is currently supporting me. And we also need to bear in mind that as part of the deal, there's capacity funding coming through to support us as well.
So your question about the 3 highlights or 3 wins, I think it was in the negotiation. So I guess there's something around a fairly prescriptive kind of remit from government outlined in the white paper. So there's kind of parameters around it. There was a long-term investment fund. There's a general ratio on which they do that. I think the reason why we would say some of that was a gain for us was the basis on which it is compared to other deals. We talked about what we wanted within the constraints of government, and we have a slightly above average per capita basis compared to other deals. Government initially proposed a different ratio of capital to revenue for the long-term investment fund. We got more revenue than were initial conversations, and that's good for us because it gives us more flexibility about how we can use the investment fund and our ability to hedge against kind of inflationary pressures that a member asked earlier. So I think they would be the kind of main wins for us that were different to what was offered. I think the main benefits generally from the deal is we get new money, we get flexibility over money that we have, and we have the ability to connect functions that are currently designed and commissioned nationally, such as adult education, which makes a difference to people around skills, jobs, and employability.
Thank you. I must come back to my first question because it was more about the relationship we have. How have we found ourselves in a position that 4 district councils in this county have sent a legal letter to Norfolk County Council? How does that square with your assertion that all of the leaders of the councils are supportive of this current deal. And we know that the MP for this area, or one of the two MPs for this area, George Freeman, has come out publicly against the current iteration of the deal. So all very well that we have a letter from March 2022, but we're in January 2023. And I wondered how many MPs are currently saying this is the deal that we think is right for Norfolk, and how many district councils are currently saying, yes, we think that the way that this is being conducted is the best way and that we've been working together. Because at the moment, the public information available to me and to this committee wouldn't indicate that Norfolk County Council's relationship in terms of this devolution deal is going very well with some of your constituent district authorities, or indeed with some of your members of parliament.
I think we'll have to see where the MPs are when things come to a vote, and this has to be confirmed by Parliament at a point in time. I wouldn't want to prejudge that. As the leader said, we have a pre-action letter signed by the four leaders. As the leader said, we're going to a meeting of Norfolk leaders this afternoon to to break bread and to discuss the deal. So discussions still go on. I think we all know how discussions and negotiations are. So
it's unusual to be sent a pre-action protocol letter by four constituent local authorities. I don't know how many times in your career that's happened to you, Tom.
As I say, we can't answer for the speak for the four leaders who signed the letter. I don't want to say too much. We're very we believe we've got a good case.
Okay, thank you very much. Paul, then Robert, then Roy.
Thank you, Chair. I think there's a bit of a common theme here, and probably for the first time, Tim, I'm going to agree 100% with you. Something you said earlier on.
Put that in the minutes.
A survey on death row, when asking inmates, would you rather die by electric chair or by lethal injection, the conclusion of the survey was that 100% of respondents chose to die. It's an interesting question. Councillor Proctor said that devolution happens right at the very start if the public want it. Mr. McCabe said, I believe in people. People are the ones that make the decisions. So the deal in principle was signed clearly with an understanding of the people that wanted it. And we hear that there's a handful of people that Councillor Proctor has spoken to, some of whom, of course, have now signed a legal letter against them. And Mr. McCabe, if I got this right, is that there were some people in Yorkshire and some academics said that it was a good idea. When challenged by the chair, if the public didn't want it, I believe, in essence, through the hyperbole, the response was, we'll press ahead anyway. Is this a deal in principle, or is this a done deal? And whether or not you support the deal or not, what message would we give to the residents of Norfolk about what they can do to stop it?
Thank you very much for your question, Councillor. I'll answer this just to unpack a little bit more the misunderstanding that appears to be growing legs around the nature of the consultation, and you'd be welcome to have a look at those that are already out now. So you'll see the kinds of questions that are being asked. What we'll be looking to do is breaking down the deal and asking respondents to the survey the degree to which they agree or disagree with particular components of the deal. In addition, as per the kind of deal text that the government has agreed with us, we'll also be looking to get perspectives from other kind of forums as well as individuals, whether they be business communities, kind of organisations, partner organisations, anchor institutions in our county. That will be considered in the round. So in that sense, I think one of my colleagues said it's not a plebiscite per se of the public, partly because we're looking to engage with a whole range of different communities, organisations and perspectives, as well as individuals. And we'll be doing that in quite an extensive way and presenting that ultimately for council eventually to consider. And that will be full council as representative through county councillors. The degree to which we talk about an in principle deal is because there are two things that have to happen to make the deal come into practice. One is government needs to pass some legislation, and ultimately the full council of Norfolk County Council has to confirm on the basis of which it's heard that it's going to change its governance model. If that doesn't happen, the deal doesn't go ahead. Through our engagement with the public, we'll see a view of what the public says. We've certainly seen in the media where people have been kind of doorstopped. You know, there are stories in our local press that seem to suggest actually the public is interested in it because they're attracted to investment to Norfolk. Norfolk not being left behind to other counties that will have this opportunity for the deal. And therefore, actually, this is our opportunity to set out what the deal is and give people an opportunity to comment and the degree to which they agree or disagree with it and the reasons why not.
Thank you. Robert.
Thank you. Mine is sort of a follow-up from Linda's, if you like. You paint a very, very rosy picture of the sunny uplands that devolution is going to bring to Norfolk. Can you tell me, I am a resident in a small village of about 130 people, what benefit, because I get no infrastructure, appalling roads, we see nothing. So what benefit am I going to see from devolution if it goes through?
Thank you. So I think you talk about infrastructure. Whenever I go out and visit councillors, normally there's the shopping list of things that need to be done. Councillor Turner's point, the county council spends about 80% of its money on social care, be it adults or be it children's, which means that a lot of the infrastructure, it's difficult to fund because we have to prioritize those who need our help most. If we're able to draw in additional funding, if we're able to draw in additional funding, for example, for skills. So in Norfolk, we've got the lowest skills in the east of England. Our people aren't as well trained and as well educated as elsewhere. So therefore, we're not able to bring in the high skilled, high paid jobs that give people that escalator towards greater opportunity. So I think the devolution deal gives us those opportunities to go up the escalator, to draw in more funding, and to ensure Norfolk has its fair share of government money, rather than, I would agree with you, we haven't had enough money, we haven't had enough investment, be it in social care, be it in social housing, be it in infrastructure.
We've got 3 minutes left. So I'm going to take one question from Roy, from Roger, and from Terry all together, send them to you, and then you can answer, and then you can make your journey to break bread, I think, next. Roy, then Roger, then Terry.
Thank you, Chair. I was quite surprised that Terry would let 43 people elect a leader and not the whole of Norfolk, but there you go. My question is that I believe it was said that devolution was the thing that had the support of everybody in Norfolk and councils, not particularly this deal. Where would Norfolk be if the NCC had stopped the process?
Thank you. Roger?
Yeah, just want to come back on this 20 million investment fund over 30 years. My question to Councillor Proctor is, based on current opinion polls and everything you see on the TV at the moment, your party's heading for a drubbing at the next election. Best case scenario you can hope for is a hung parliament. So if that was to happen and the administration at Westminster changed in a couple of years, what guarantee is there that you're going to get this 20 million over 30 years and that some new administration doesn't come in and decides, no, we're not going to spend that in Norfolk, we're going to spend it somewhere else? I mean, is there something cast iron that I'm not aware of that's written in stone that says, damn it, the people of Norfolk are going to get this for the next 30 years, come what may, whatever administration there is in Whitehall? I think that's something that we need to think about as well.
Thank you. And Terry?
Just a similar sort of question, but different. one of the stated aims of all of this is to reduce regional funding disparities. And this £20 million against a backdrop of significant financial challenges. The budget alone is 60 million for this financial year. Where's the evidence that this proposal will do anything to address those regional funding disparities? And how has the figure of 20 million been arrived at?
Thank you. You have your tasks. Paul.
Yeah, so we're just trying to coordinate our answers. Thank you. So the question from the councillor in front of me about where would Norfolk be if we had stopped this process, because there was a sense of wanting devolution, but even if people had difference of opinions about the eventual model. Very simply, if Norfolk had stopped this process, we would be nowhere. This is the government policy around devolution at the moment. Ministers have been explicit to us and to kind of leaders of our councils when they've met with them that this is their approach to devolution. In essence, this is the show in town. If we had stopped this process, the implications of that would be two things. One, those neighbouring counties who either have some kind of devolution deal already, Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, neighbouring county who is in the process like us of enacting this deal, they would be able to go forward with the benefits of them. Norfolk would be left behind. And within the deal, those of you, clearly some have read the detail of the text, you will see in there that there is in-year money. We would hope to be seeing the first kind of investments of government flowing to Norfolk into projects that we've developed with district councils over the course of the next few months. That would not have happened or won't be happening. In terms of, I think if I've remembered and written down the correct question and can read my writing, I think the question was then around how did the figure of the investment fund get arrived at? Some of it was based on government assuming a per capita figure. Some of it was us trying to influence them to increase that further. So that's where that figure has arrived at. And it comes out of a pre-committed kind of government budget, if you like, for devolution. So they set that aside. And the connected question to that was, I think, the confidence around, you know, how does this get unwound or what would happen if government changes in the future? I mentioned to an answer earlier, two things have to happen for this deal to happen. One, Norfolk County Council makes a resolution about its governance. The other is government has to pass secondary legislation to enact it. So this deal would get enacted in Parliament, and therefore it would be the kind of law of the land that kind of brings us the security. It's not just a bit of paper, it's a legislative process. But we all know the way British democracy works is Parliament can't bind its successor. So anything could happen, not just around this deal, but about even the very fundamental structure of local government. Clearly, that's for national government, that's how it works. But our security would be, it would be enshrined in legislation and statutory instruments.
And just to add to that, Chairman, if I can, in terms of some of the comments made, I don't share your view about drubbing, but we'll have to see what happens. Who knows what happens in the elections? And plus the fact, you know, let's look at what a potential Labour government may be doing. They're actually favouring devolution. So perhaps there's something in there that says this is the right thing to do. And I'd also suggest, if we're going to go down this route, potentially with a new government of a different colour to the current one, then the best thing to do is to lock in Norfolk to the current deal to look towards the future.
Thank you very much. A nice note to finish on. So I wish you happy hunting. And we'll move on to the next item. Thank you very much for coming and answering members' questions. Feel free to come back any other time. Of course, we'll see you for the member briefing. I think it's next week, isn't it? So thank you very much. At this point, we'll take a 5-minute rest break, people to freshen up, and then we'll reconvene at 10 past.